My name is Anna Dziemianko and I represent Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Poland. Today I would like to talk about non-examples in online dictionaries. First of all, I would like to clarify what I mean by non-examples. They are simply examples which show incorrect usage, provide a sort of negative evidence, show how a language should not be used. Out of the two examples which you see in the slide, the one in red is a non-example because it shows how the verb approve should not be used. The issue of negative evidence has received quite a bit of attention in the theoretical literature on the topic. Some researchers expect negative evidence to help draw attention to pitfalls of usage and realize differences between ones L1 and L2, which may have a positive effect on language learning. Others warn that exposure to erroneous usage might make learners acquire non-examples as if they represented correct usage, either through ignorance of the typographic conventions used to highlight negative evidence, or mechanically through sheer exposure. In monolingual learners' dictionaries, examples showing typical language errors usually appear in warning boxes, along with examples of correct usage and some brief explanations or warning messages how not to use the language. So let's look at some non-examples in monolingual learners' dictionaries online. In the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, they are given in shaded warning boxes. In such a box, there is clear information how the word cannot be used. Examples of correct and incorrect usage are juxtaposed, but non-examples are flagged by means of strikeout font. In the Longhorn Dictionary of Contemporary English, non-examples can be found in grammar boxes, where correct usage is explained and illustrated in examples, but non-examples are marked in red, preceded by a red cross and a note, "Don't say." In the Macmillan English Dictionary online, non-examples are put in special boxes where correct and incorrect usage is explained and exemplified. The target structures are highlighted in bold within regular and non-examples. With that, there is also a tick before the former and a cross before the latter. The dictionary does not use any special color coding, just bold print. In the Macmillan English Dictionary, there are also short video clips titled Real Vocabulary, which are supplied for headwords whose usage can be particularly challenging. I don't want to spend precious presentation time on watching such a clip, but I just want to show you a screenshot with a non-example of how not to use the word comprise. The mistake is marked in red in a sentence which appears in black, and there is a red cross next to it to alert the user to the error. The error is also commented on and explained in the clip. Even though non-examples are present in the leading online learners' dictionaries, little is known about their usefulness. Previous research shows that warning notes might not be very effective in drawing learners' attention to errors. Chen, for example, asked participants to use entries from the Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary to judge sentence grammaticality. In addition to definitions and examples, some entries with the target words included boxed warning messages, which identified and corrected common mistakes. Only 1/5 of the participants' decisions were made after consulting these messages, and far more were made after consulting examples or definitions. Besides, in that study, only 4 regular Cambridge entries with common mistake boxes were used, although 10 sentences had to be corrected and 10 entries were supplied. The role of non-examples as such was not investigated. The common mistake boxes just happened to be present in some entries, but the variable of example type, regular examples versus non-examples, was not isolated, and the study was paper-based. To the best of my knowledge, there is no empirical research into the usefulness of non-examples in online learners' dictionaries. The aim of my study is to determine whether non-examples in the online learners' dictionaries affect error correction accuracy, time, as well as immediate and delayed retention of correct usage. I posed 4 research questions. Do non-examples help to correct grammatical errors? Does error correction time depend on the presence of non-examples? Is the immediate and delayed retention of correct grammatical structures affected by non-examples? Are error correction accuracy, time, and usage acquisition conditioned by example distribution in entries? To answer the research questions, I carried out an online experiment which consisted of a pre-test, a main test, immediate and delayed post-tests. The delayed post-test was conducted 2 weeks after the immediate one. All of them were built around 18 English sentences with errors. The pre- and post-tests checked the subject's ability to correct the errors without dictionaries. In the main test, error correction was based on monolingual online dictionary consultation. The 18 sentences with errors in grammar were drawn from sentence correction tests. 2 dictionary versions for the incorrectly used words were created, one with regular encoding examples, the other additionally showed non-examples in red. The number of examples and their distribution in entries were strictly controlled. There were always 6 regular examples. In each version, examples useful for error correction occupied entry initial, medial, and final positions. In one dictionary version, non-examples were added immediately after the regular ones useful for error correction. Here we see a sample task with an entry with regular examples only. There is a sentence with an error and an entry for the incorrectly used word follows. And in the other test version, everything is the same, except for the non-example, which shows how not to use the head word. 196 upper intermediate learners of English participated in the study. 102 accessed the online dictionary with non-examples, and 94 consulted the version without non-examples. There were 2 independent variables in the study, example types with 2 levels, and the target example position in the entry with 3 levels. The former was a between groups factor, as each subject had access to only one test version, with regular examples or non-examples. The latter was a within subject factor, because each participant consulted entries where target examples were given in 3 places in equal measure. 2 by 3 repeated measures ANOVAs were conducted for each dependent variable, that is error correction accuracy, error correction time, immediate retention and delayed retention, and post hoc tests were used to investigate significant differences. Now let me present the results for each dependent variable in turn. So let's start with error correction accuracy. Example types had a significant effect on error correction accuracy. Non-examples helped to correct over 50% more errors than regular ones. The position of examples played no statistically significant role. Now let's talk about the time of task performance. Error correction time was not dependent on example types or their distribution. So error correction time did not depend on the place of examples in the entry. Now let me go on to discuss immediate retention. Non-examples did not affect the ability to correct errors, but the positioning of examples did. Entry final examples contributed significantly more to the immediate retention of correct grammatical structures than those in the middle of the entry, and 1/3 more than entry initial ones, but the latter difference was not significant. Finally, let me discuss the effect of non-examples on the delayed acquisition of usage. Non-examples had a significant and strong effect on the delayed ability to correct errors. The subjects exposed to non-examples 2 weeks earlier corrected from memory over 160 more errors than the others. Example distribution did not play a significant role in delayed usage acquisition. So, let me draw some conclusions. Non-examples increase error correction accuracy, but do not speed up task performance. They do not support learning usage immediately after exposure, but help enormously to remember it in the long run. Example distribution influences only the immediate retention of correct structures. In fact, entry-final examples help to remember them best. The last conclusion confirms previous observations in the literature on the topic about the salience of entry-final positions and challenges those which point to the beginning of the entry as the most salient. But caution is needed here because so far the observations concerned the distribution of senses and collocations. Now we learn that entry-final examples are salient inasmuch as they help remember usage. Quite surprisingly, non-examples do not speed up error correction, which implies that they are not noticed immediately, even though in the study they were highlighted in red. And it follows that they do not facilitate the search for relevant information in entries. But they have a positive effect on the delayed ability to correct errors, so apparently they strengthen the memory trace in the long run. Overall then, non-examples seem to be a welcome feature of learner's dictionaries. They are likely to be useful in various tasks which entail error correction. Importantly, they also help to remember correct usage in the long run. They also prove to be a valuable standalone entry feature, not enclosed in warning boxes, which are much too often ignored. The study has a number of limitations. Even though the sequence of sentences with errors was changed there at each stage of the experiment, the same sentences were used. The subjects could have remembered the specific context and corrected the errors accordingly, but they may not have learned usage as such. Also, all the examples in the study were always highlighted in red. Other highlighting methods were not investigated. Besides, different errors were tested, and the types of errors were not strictly controlled. There were errors in prepositions, unreal cast, verb patterns, adjectives, determiners, or conjunctions. Some errors could have been more or less difficult to correct than the others. So in further research, different ways of highlighting non-examples should be tested, maybe similar to those shown in the slide. Errors should be systematically controlled to see whether the effectiveness of non-examples depends on the type of error. The context of errors should be varied in retention tests to reduce the chances of users remembering correct usage only in a specific context. In fact, putting the same errors in different sentences in the retention test might give more objective results. It might also be interesting to compare the usefulness of standalone non-examples with those in entry boxes. Thank you so much for your attention.